Hello, LAPCS scholars, Mr. Rowley here. And today's video is going to talk about the Articles of Confederation. So, to set the stage here, last Friday we finished the revolution itself. So, we have a nation, but what kind of government is this nation going to have? At this point, nobody knew. So, this is the first attempt to create a national government of the United States. So the Articles of Confederation is how he did it. So 1777 to 1787. So this form of government lasted about 10 years. Key facts about the Articles of Confederation. A confederation is a type of government with a loose union among sovereign states. That means independent states. The central government in a confederation is weak, while the member states retain most of their sovereign powers. In other words, states had more power than the national government. For example, the modern United Nations is a confederation of sovereign nations. So the United Nations includes the United States, the United Kingdom, and a bunch of other countries that have agreed to be friendly to each other. The United States began as a confederation of sovereign or independent states under the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation established a firm league of friendship with a deliberately weak central government. Don't forget that the colonies had just fought a war with a very strong, powerful central government in England and won. So they didn't want another government that was similar to that. The drafters, or writers, of the Articles of Confederation created a weak central government for three reasons. First, they feared a strong central government because it centralized authority that was too remote or far away from the people. Americans were wary or concerned about giving their new government powers they had just denied to Parliament. Remember, Parliament was or is Britain's governing body. Second, they feared that the big states such as Virginia, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania would dominate the government because of their big populations. And finally, they believed that a representative Republican government would only work in small communities with common interests. The Articles created a central government consisting of a unicameral, or one branch, Congress elected by state legislatures or lawmakers. Each state, regardless of its size, had just one vote in Congress. The Revolutionary War. The Confederate government successfully waged and won the Revolutionary War. The Confederate government successfully negotiated a mutual defense treaty with France. The Confederate government successfully negotiated the Treaty of Paris, ending the Revolutionary War on favorable terms to the United States. So after this time period, it became evident that now that the war was over, the government was going to have to be changed. So the first thing that they did was the Land Ordinance of 1785. This established uniform procedures, or the same procedures for surveying Western lands into townships and sections. So Western lands is when, going from the East Coast into the Western frontiers. Provided for the sale of public lands in the West at $1 per acre with 640 acre minimum. So if you were going to purchase, you had to have $640. Now this was a lot of money in those days. Reserve one section in each township to support public schools. This marked the first instance of federal aid to education. So even back when we were establishing our country, education was important. Public education was important. Northwest Ordinance of 1787 established an orderly procedure for territories to become states equal to the original 13 colonies. It banned slavery from the Northwest Territory, thus becoming the first national law to prohibit the expansion of slavery. And we're going to be talking about slavery a lot for the next few weeks because we're going to be leading up to the Civil War. The Northwest Ordinance did not provide free land for settlers. They had to get out there and purchase their land. provisions of the Northwest Ordinance, a division of the Northwest Territory into not less than 3 or more and no more than 5 states. The Northwest Territory is around where modern-day Oregon is. A 3-stage method for admitting a new state to the Union, to the country, with a congressionally appointed governor, secretary, and 3 judges to rule in the first phase, an elected assembly, and 1 non-voting delegate to Congress to be elected in the second phase. When the population of the territory reached 5,000 free male inhabitants of full age, and a state constitution to be drafted and membership of the Union to be requested in the third phase when the population reached 60,000. In other words, as people settled out in the West, if a particular region reached 60,000 and did all of these things, these legal steps, they would be welcomed into the Union as another state. A Bill of Rights protecting religious freedom by right to the writ of habeas corpus, the benefit of trial by jury, and other individual rights, in addition to the ordinance, encouraged education and forbade slavery. So already slavery is becoming a huge issue in this, at the time, a young nation. So now so we just talked about all these strong strengths of the Articles of Confederation. Now we're going to talk about the weaknesses. The weaknesses and failures of the Articles of Confederation. Congress lacked the power to levy taxes, so they couldn't collect taxes. How's the government going to make money if we can't collect taxes? The inability to raise revenue made it very difficult to pay off the Revolutionary War debt. So going to war costs a lot of money, and the country was severely in debt as a result. Remember the French, how the French helped? Well, the United States owed the French money. Congress lacked the power to regulate interstate foreign commerce. It failed to restore exports of rice, indigo, and tobacco to Britain while allowing the British to flood the states with manufactured goods. These ineffective policies produced a huge balance of trade deficit. In other words, the federal government was not able to regulate trade with other countries, and that became a big problem because you need to be able to make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of, and that was what was happening. Britain was taking advantage of the fact that the United States did not have very powerful trade regulations. The government lacked an executive branch to enforce national policy and provide national leadership. The government lacked a national judiciary to resolve disputes between the states. So a lot of the time, states would be arguing with each other over money, over trade, over land, and without a national government, there was no way to sit the states down and have a little talk and work things out and make a compromise. Congress issued an inflated currency and failed to halt paper money abuses in Rhode Island and other states. So essentially, states were producing their own money, so they'd print and mint their own money, and they would make it worth whatever they felt like. So if money was worth more in Pennsylvania than in Maryland, then there was a problem. There was a deficit between the two states. The Articles of Confederation lacked the flexibility needed to make necessary changes. Amendments required a unanimous vote of all 13 states. So all 13 states had to vote unanimously in order to make a change to the Articles of Confederation. Then Shays' Rebellion happened in 1787, and this is something you're going to need to remember. What happened? Well, frustrated Massachusetts farmers were losing their farms because they could not repay their debts to Eastern creditors in hard money. In other words, because of all the issues with money and currency, the farmers couldn't pay their debts. The desperate farmers demanded that the state legislatures halt farm foreclosures. Foreclosures is when somebody comes and closes you down and takes your land. Led by Captain Daniel Shays, armed farmers closed a courthouse where creditors were suing to foreclose farm mortgages. So the creditors were coming into the banks and saying, hey, the banks were the creditors. The creditors were coming into the court and going, hey, listen, we need our money. We're going to take it from these farmers, and if they can't pay, then we're taking their land. Wealthy Bostonians raised an army that quickly crushed the rebellion. So here we have military action happening within this young United States country. What caused Shays' Rebellion? Shays' Rebellion reflected the tensions between impoverished or extremely poor farmers and their wealthy merchants who dominated the Massachusetts legislatures, or the governing, or the lawmakers. So if wealthy people are controlling the lawmakers, then the poor people are going to lose every time. So why should we remember it? Just before Shays' Rebellion, 5 states sent delegates or representatives to Annapolis to discuss trade problems among the states. Although the Annapolis Convention failed to resolve the commercial problems, it did not call upon Congress to summon a convention to revise the Articles of Confederation. Shays' Rebellion frightened many conservatives who feared a breakdown of law and order. In other words, people were really concerned that if there was not a stronger national government, then anybody could take up arms against somebody else, and there's nothing anybody could do about it. So, and that kind of lawlessness was rather frightening. The Great Commotion in Massachusetts convinced George Washington, James Madison, and other key leaders that the United States needed a stronger national government. Don't confuse Shays' Rebellion with Bacon's Rebellion. Okay, so basically, in 1787, the United States had been established for a few years, about a decade, and the problem is that the government that was created was not strong enough. So in your notes, and this time you're using the Cornell notes, which I provided to you. I provided a template to you. So make sure you look at that and make sure you watch the video on how to take them, and then answer the exit ticket associated with it. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about what the leaders of the country did in order to strengthen the national government. So, and that will be the Constitution of the United States. So we will be talking about that tomorrow. All right. So thanks for watching. Please make sure that you take these notes and come to Zoom with Miss Marks and I and get some answers to any questions you have. All right. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.